Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I would probably be remiss if I did not at least mention the Bilderberg Conference going on, because it really does control so many things in the world, mostly bad, I'm afraid. And as I said in another video, I really can't give all the information that's going on out there. Time constraints are the biggest problem. So you really have to be able to do that yourself. You have to have eyes to see and ears to hear. And I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but I'm following an old instruction method that I was taught a long time ago, that you tell people what you're going to tell them. You tell them, and then you tell them what you told them. So I don't mean to insult anybody, but the repetition in these things is important right now. The most important, of course, being that we become spiritually connected to God. That's the most important thing. And I want to hasten to add here that I'm not a perfect example of that, not by a long shot. But it's what's in our heart, and what we want to become. As a man thinketh, so is he. You know, if we want to do right, then we'll kind of migrate that way. If we want to do evil, we'll go that way. It's that old Native American saying, it's what wolf you feed, you know. So at any rate, I think what I'll say here is going to be basically about the Bilderberg and the secrecy that surrounds it. Remember, I did the video called Secrecy is Deceit, and that's really what's going on here. I mean, they don't even want regular media covering them. And certainly the alternative media, they're causing a great deal of problems with. I think you know right now that the police presence and the surveillance going on in Austria around the Bilderberg group against principally journalists is unprecedented. It is at an all-time disgusting high, because secrecy is deceit. Remember, one of the things that Satan has been so good at is convincing people he doesn't exist. Now, whether you believe in Satan or not, that's not the issue. The point is that evil doesn't like it when light is shined upon them. And so they try to do things in the dark. Remember Isaiah 59, that they would do things in secret, okay? And that God would expose that, and it would be shouted from the housetops eventually. But the types of terrible things that they would do, the murders and the deceits, the thievery, all of that in Isaiah 59 that they would try to hide. Well, that's what these guys are about. You look at the fruits and it's all maleficent. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. So let's talk about Bilderberg for just a minute. They are doing all that they do in secret. For the longest time, the media even refused, who of course the Bilderberg people basically control, refused to admit they exist. Again, Satan saying, hey, I don't exist, right? So then it finally came out because of the efforts of a few really staunch and dedicated reporters, journalists. And so now some of that's coming out. And in response to that, they are fighting back, the Bilderbergers are, with all of these surveillance and crackdown of police and cordoning off huge security areas and all of that. And these are government officials. They have no right to go there, and not all of them. A lot of them are corporate, of course. But, you know, there are things that say that people that are representing nations can't do certain things. And one of those things is they're not supposed to do these negotiations in secret. By their fruits you shall know them. These guys are getting ready, the Bilderbergs, are getting ready to do some really bad things. You know, we've talked a lot about Jade Helm. We've talked about the financial situation. We've talked about the TPP, which they back up. And again, you know, Ryan in Congress, right? You know, can anybody really take this guy seriously? I don't understand how these people rise in the ranks that they do. Well, of course I do, because people are either stupid or complicit. But here's the guy saying, just like Pelosi said with Obamacare, well, we're not going to know what's in it until after we pass it, so you have to pass it first. That's not only irresponsible, that's criminal. And I'm calling you out on it, Ryan. You're a coward. You're just following the money trail and the promises of these demons and Satanists as part of the Bilderberg group. And it's typical of the criminals in our government. You're all bought and paid for. Every last one of you. No exceptions. One way or another. That's pretty disgusting. But anyway, there are really only two major news outlets that are covering the Bilderberg group on the ground in Austria right now. There are a lot of independents that are discussing it here, for instance, like what I'm doing, but even more in depth, Pete Santilli and several others. But on the ground there in Austria, you have Infowars, very respectable Rob Dew and Josh Owens, and we've also got from Infowars Paul Watson there. Very capable journalists, investigative journalists. And then you have Charlie Skelton from The Guardian. Now, all of these guys have been harassed by the police. If you've been watching Alex Jones at all on Infowars, you'd know some of this. But, oh my gosh, Charlie Skelton from The Guardian. Guardian, one of the most respected newspapers in the world and news services in the world. And they've searched him, they've stopped him, they've entered his room there, his hotel room, and just harassed him. They actually came in his apartment while he was trying to get ready for bed at like midnight and basically harassed him, asked to see his papers again, then went out and searched his vehicle. I mean, this is really serious. This is not just intimidation. They're up to something else, obviously. You know, this is really crazy, and if the mainstream media journalists don't break with their bosses and really, really scream about this, I mean, this is serious, extremely serious. Everyone should be up in arms about this. And by their fruits, you'll know them. This shows you what these people are like in the Bilderbergs. Petraeus is there. Remember I told you about him kissing that disgusting creature, that shade, that specter. I call him a lot of names. Henry Kissinger. Well, that's when I knew Petraeus was totally lost. I guess a lot of you knew before that, but I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, as I've said often. Anyway, so we have these respected reporters there, only a handful of them in Austria watching the Bilderberg group and trying to report on it, and they are being harassed and really mistreated. And that's not surprising. Okay, well, I also wanted to bring up the situation with Judicial Watch. It's now called, I guess, Freedom Watch USA. And the great job that they did on getting the information out about the U.S. intelligence services assisting ISIS, actually producing ISIS. You know, it was Al-Qaeda and they just kind of morphed it into ISIS. And the fact that they've given them money, weapons, and training. That should be, you know, the American people on that alone should be screaming for people to be hung for treason. You know, but American people are so dumbed down by and large. I know there's a quiet majority supposedly, but boy, you know, when are you going to start speaking up? Maybe never, or after it's too late. Anyway, I want to thank Larry Klayman and Freedom Watch USA for everything that they do and have done. Another scripture in Isaiah. It's Isaiah chapter 8, verses 12 to 22. And, you know, I was going to read it, but you all can go look it up. You know, Isaiah, a lot of people say, well, that was just for his time. For instance, the thing on Emmanuel and a child born and all those things. They say, well, that was all about the king of Babylon, about Isaiah himself. And I realize that. But most of Isaiah's things, almost all of them really, had a purpose, not only for his time, but for a later time as well. For instance, even Jeremiah, it says, in the latter days you shall consider it. First of all, you'll notice there that the Lord's talking, he says, oh, these people, you know, they're associating themselves with, you know, this bad side, so to speak. And then others are saying, oh, look, there's a confederacy. Now, the Hebrew word actually that's used there, it can mean confederacy, but it actually lends itself more to conspiracy. Isaiah's talking about conspiracy in his day, and that carries on into ours. And as you read Isaiah 8, you can see the parallels about what's going on here. So basically, what does the Lord say about this conspiracy? He says, you know what? I'm letting them dig a pit for themselves. It's not quite worded that way, but that's really what it is, and this is explained elsewhere, that the pit that they dig for others, they shall fall in themselves. So while I'm here, and a lot of us are here saying, look, what's going on, what's happening, there's this conspiracy going on out there. In other words, that we need to be aware of this evil. By the same token, the Lord's saying, don't worry about that as much. Let me be your fear, and let me be your dread. In other words, God is much more powerful in the end. We need to be aware of it and take what actions that we can, but we don't do it from a position of fear. We do it from a position of strength by talking through the Spirit and asking the Lord for his help. And if you read Isaiah 8, you'll see that. As a matter of fact, he says right in there, to the law and to the testimony. If they speak not according to this, it is because there is no light in them. And he's talking about really answering, the problems of people looking for demons and all that for answers to their questions, like these guys at the Bilderbergs do. Okay? So it's really, really important. If you'd like to go read that, you might kind of find it interesting. I did a video here, and at this point in time, I'm questioning whether I should actually put it up or not. It's going to be called To Be or Ruin, and if it's up, you'll know it. Like I said, as I'm doing this, I'm not sure I'm going to put it up, but I might. And it goes into some Hebrew again. Some people on the web, on the internet, have and I brought this up a little bit in a video back, one or two videos back, about people who are saying that the Bible has an evil God in it, and those kinds of things. And they bring up Sumerian information, and they supposedly give a translation of part of the Tetragrammaton. And I just want you to know that you need to do your own study in this. I'm not saying all of what they say is incorrect, but it's coming from the wrong angle. So this particular video that I did called To Be or Ruin, it's actually to be as the word I'm talking about, and translated into English out of Hebrew. And that same word, at least the consonants, are ruin or calamity. So you might find that of interest, just so that you know that there are people out there that are giving you information that isn't, I don't want to say it's incorrect, but it's not totally correct. And it's certainly not giving you the big picture. But you'll have to decide for yourself.
Yeah, even Wyoming gets sprayed like crazy. I mean, these are not contrails. Look how that big one's spreading out. You can kind of see that triangle there of 1, 2, 3, and this one's really spreading out. Yeah, that's really water condensation. Oh yeah, sure. Anyway, you can see around here that all of these clouds, all of them, are due to the spraying. Every last one of them. Every last one of them. Whole bunch out there you can see, I think, in the distance. Unfortunately, I don't have a magnifier or a telescoping view on that, but there are like 1, 2, 3, 4, probably a half a dozen or more out that way. This is Evanston downtown. This is Main Street. It's still got a lot of old buildings. It's an old west area. And this is my favorite pub restaurant. They actually brew their own microbrews in here. It doesn't look like much from the outside, but I want to show you what it looks like inside. It's called Suds Brewery. See that? Okay. Here we are. Walk in and let you see this. Is this fantastic or what? Look at this wonderful place. And this is one of my favorite hangouts. I just wanted everybody to see it. Isn't this cool? So, yep, really here. Talk to you later. That's my beer there, by the way.